Per usual, everything on this channel is for educational purposes only, is not intended as financial advice. Let's take a look at some altcoins today. Not much has changed week over week for the past several weeks for altcoins, but on liquidity globally has increased quite a bit. In the green there, stablecoin circulating supply also holding at the highs, and you can see there's a big divergence between crypto liquidity, global liquidity, Bitcoin, and altcoin market caps. That's total too. So the question, of course, is, will these alligator jaws shut? When will they shut? When will we see an influx of money, if ever, into alts? It's going to happen into BTC first, most likely, similar to what we saw down here in 2023. Orange line recovered before the blue line. So alts are going to need BTC to recover first. It is helpful that the dollar continues to plummet, hold at lows, rate expectations for cuts continue, yields continue to fall. These are all good things for dollar weakness. What we don't want to see is severe dollar weakness, emergency cuts, panic cuts. We want Goldilocks. We want normalization. We don't want a recession. So if you think there's a mega pending recession coming and you're all in meme coins, that viewpoint doesn't really jive, because if we do have a real deal recession, alts will do worse than they're doing now. The riskiest of the alts will do the worst. So if BTC drops 10 from here percent, memes are going to be down 50%. So you got to keep that in mind. So if that is your viewpoint, that we are 100% headed for a recession no matter what happens, then maybe it's best to sit out alts until that arrives. Then while everyone else is panicking, you're there to pick up the pieces. You're there to buy the blood instead of being the blood. Another week, another high for Bitcoin dominance. All the more reason to avoid alts. Anybody using any trend metric for many years now has been able to spot what's happening here. And it hasn't really been a question. It hasn't really ever been challenged. This isn't bearish. This is still turbo bullish. So until this rolls over, alts, at least for me, I don't care what anybody else does, but for me, alts will not be a substantial part of my portfolio. It just doesn't make sense. Dominance is still very strong. Maybe we see something in the 60s, but it's very much a wait and see. It's up to the altcoin bulls to prove that dominance is weak, because this is the trend. There's no other way to interpret that. The same thing with total 2 BTC minus stables. It's black and white. It's been below trend metrics. It needs to be above to be bullish for years. And that's it. There's nothing else to really say, right? Now we can look at last time what happened post-halving. It took over 300 days. And that brings us into like Q2 2025. So you do have to ask yourself if you want to be holding alts until then, just hoping. Whatever you do, have a plan. You don't want to be the guy who's capitulating if we break this to like 0.3 after holding from above 1. So definitely have a plan. Total 2 on the USD pair. Even this continues to look rather weak. Not as bearish as this. I mean, this is as bearish as it gets, right? This is at least trying maybe to find a bottom here. This range compression is going on as prices go lower as the downtrend hastens. You may see something into the sub $700 billion range for total 2. This does include stables, so it might look a little different without stables. But in any event, it's certainly not bullish. It's below the 200-day. It's below the cloud. That's all there's really to say. The last pop we got was after a multi-year consolidation. Now, I don't expect another multi-year consolidation up here necessarily, but at the very least, we're going to have to start making higher highs. Potentially, this plays out as a falling wedge variant. Stablecoin circulating supply has slowed a little bit as far as week-over-week issuance, month-over-month issuance. You can see the difference between the beginning of 2024 and now. Just the rate of change of issuance there has slowed down quite a bit, but we still have issuance. So there's that. You know, it's just there's only so much stablecoin that can support all of the issuance and the unlocks and the inflation that we're seeing. Total 3 BTC, same thing. It just black and white. You know, it's not been bullish since 2022. There will be a day eventually, maybe, you know, this looks like PayPal a little bit. It's got this falling wedge type thing. PayPal struggled even after breaking out of the falling wedge, it had an inverted head and shoulders at the bottom, then it had a head and shoulders, and it went sideways for more time. So that's when you want to start thinking about allocating, not financial advice. But this is still very much in downtrending free fall for the moment. Others BTC also the same. At the very least, you want a bottomy pattern, you want anything, any signs of life, and we are not seeing that. We just aren't. So I prefer to wait. I prefer to see some strength in life. I don't want to be the guy holding the bag for the next 6+ months as this ratio and other ratios against Bitcoin potentially continue to go lower. And we can look to other things like the NFT index. I talked about that last week. The watch index is another good one. I think it represents the same type of money that trades alts or trades NFTs. There's just a continued drain here of value over the past 2 years, over the past year. There's just no bottom, right? It's just continuous downside. And it's gotten so bad. Will we not think of the poor luxury watchmakers who are asking for handouts from the government? Will we not think of them in this troubling time? Of course, the Swiss, known for banking, chocolate, and luxury watches. So they cannot just let their coveted watch industry flop in the wind. And as far as the issuance of these coins, I don't know which website this is. It might be Artemis, but I'm not exactly sure. But based on this data, there is a lot of unlocks coming this month and really every month. And this is what you're fighting. You're fighting this plus selling versus buying. You know, does it feel like there's a lot of buyers in the market right now? It doesn't to me. And that isn't like a slight against altcoins. It's just that's the reality. There aren't enough people buying any of this stuff right now. It doesn't even mean that all of these unlocks will instantly be market sold. It's just this is supply coming to market. Take that for what you will. May or may not be sold. There may or may not be buyers to hold this up. But some of these charts just looks like nobody's home. You know, it's just like selling. 2 quick charts that I thought I'd highlight in the open. Ton, which to me looks more and more like a head and shoulders. This kind of a squashed, you know, flat looking head and shoulders, but I think it's there. It's not something you need to trade if you're not in it already, if you're not already short, let's say. But stuff like this, seeing this on a chart, seeing that it's below the daily cloud, seeing that it has a bearish trend pattern, a reversal pattern, this says to me, stay out, avoid. The danger center of my brain lights up when I see charts like this. So this does not look like anything that under its own power is going to magically reverse here without some sort of positive headline. You know, that's my guess. That's what it would take. But you're looking for the opposite of this in total 2, total 3, all this stuff, right? We're not even close. We're not even close to that on any of these charts. BNB, the opposite of ton, if I had to choose 2 trades, it would be short ton, long BNB, even though this isn't quite ready for the long side of the trade just yet. You want this back to the neckline at around 600, but it's setting up for that. And again, you're not seeing this on any of the alt indices. You're not seeing months of sideways. It's just been months and months of down for the most part. Before we go any further here, let me mention today's video sponsor, Kraken Pro. Kraken Pro is a complete overhaul of the Kraken trading experience with a one-stop shop for advanced and professional traders. Kraken Pro enables efficient trading execution across multiple markets with a UI that allows for unique optimization tailored to your trading style. You can check out Kraken Pro with a link in the description of this video. Not investment advice. Crypto trading involves risk of loss. Cryptocurrency services are provided to U.S. and U.S. territory customers by Payward Ventures Inc., PVI, DBA, Kraken. On Kraken, we can take a look at markets here. For the most part, not too much going on. We'll do a fresh overview here of everything. We had the JOLTS data today, which was more favorable towards a bigger cut from the Fed in September. Bit of a bounce here. We also have the usual daily selling off of BTC. There's nothing here on trend whatsoever. It's still chop. It's still largely down, right? We cannot make a higher high. You can see where those highs are: 65, 70, 71, 72. Until then, I wouldn't expect alts to do anything constructive at all. Sol, bottom of the range, trying to bounce. We'll even shut off the annotations. This is not at a place where you'd expect magic to happen. You expect bullish continuation at the highs. Now you could always buy buy the low, set a stop at around 120, 118, 115, something down here. That's not horrible. If you're a range trader, you probably like this level. But if you're a trend trader, you probably want to wait at least until we're back above 165, 162, because all this is just slop and chop. There's no discernible bullishness whatsoever. And if anything, you're kind of worried about the head and shoulders possibility. And the most cautious trend trader would wait until we're back above 190. You can go to the weekly and see what it looks like. And we can look for strength here. And it just doesn't look like a trade yet. I always want to see a pattern to support that, or higher highs or something, right? Even down here in Sol into 2023, we had a very clear inverted head and shoulders that kicked all this off. Up here, we don't really have that. If we had an ascending triangle, if we had bullish consolidation in the pattern, then it would certainly be more favorable. But we keep knocking on the lows instead of making higher highs. Also interesting that Sol volume higher than ETH here on Kraken. ETH as a chart, there's just nothing, right? It's simple. This is why I use the cloud. It's black and white. We're below the cloud. Everything is bearish here. And there's nothing really else to say. Maybe we get some sort of 2800 neckline of a potential inverted head and shoulders into Q4 throughout the month. Maybe this ends up being Adam and Eve, whatever. But we need it above 28. We need it above 3K before I start caring about this. There's just nothing here. There's nothing here. We can go on the weekly and it gets worse on the cloud because we're now flirting with bearishness below the cloud, bearish TK cross. It just doesn't look good at all here for ETH. Aave up decently on the day. There was an announcement from SEC about Uni settling a suit, $175,000, giant waste of money. Giant waste of money for the taxpayers. So that's settled, and maybe that is helping DeFi here, but Aave doesn't look horrible. It's at highs, it's making highs, it's ready to make highs, it's paid its dues. It is post range here for months and months and months and months. It had this fake out head and shoulders that broke up. I don't love it, but it's a decent looking chart where not much else is going on. So it's certainly one of the better options out there. Is it pretty? Is it great? Is it amazing? Is it awesome? No. And again, if BTC pulls back, it's not like Aave is magically going to be spared. So you got to keep that in mind. Ripple, chop, nothing, right? No trend in the cloud. There's really nothing to do here. It looks a lot like LTC, where it has this, not horizontal, but diagonal support resist line it's kind of flirting with. And that's that. It needs to get it back above 63 for me to care about it. Doge also flirting with a breakdown below the weekly cloud there. And you just have this continuous falling wedge. This is kind of like total 2, right? It kind of looks the same. So I'd really like to see a divergence, a massive wick, a sell-off. I'd really like to see something deep into sub 10 cents. A nice bullish rejection of some buyer stepping in, even at 0.77. But on trend, still not there yet, based on the daily cloud. But again, there's going to be a time when all this stuff starts to look better. It's all correlated. It's just in the bear market, in the bearish periods, it's miserable because it's all correlated. There's really nowhere else to go outside of cash or BTC. I talked about this on the Sunday video. NVIDIA, to me, still could shape up to some sort of bullish continuation pattern. And the AI-related coins, you can see here, have this potential setup with an edge-to-edge through the cloud above 170. So this would be the reversal setup, not the bullish continuation setup. And that would bring you back to the previous range, but not in the cloud yet, not back to the neckline yet. Certainly something to watch. At 138 would be the level. So there are things out there maybe on the edges. And then there's things like this in ADA. You know, this is nothing. Sorry, ADA people. It's just free fall, nothingness. It's the same thing in 2022. It doesn't matter about upgrades, right? It just doesn't matter, okay? Show me on this chart where the market was excited about a Cardano upgrade. You can't. Back above the daily cloud and we can talk, but here, there's not really much of anything. Even in 2023, we had this extended Adam and Eve for 3 months, 5 months before the breakout. And we're still here flirting with lower lows. Whiff On the altcoin side or the meme coin side of the spectrum, go to the 12-hour here. WIF has kind of had several false starts. There's one on the chart there that I previously drew. It actually reached the target, but not for an extended period of time. There was an attempt here. That was a fake out, broke down. That was a fake out, broke down. And now down here, there's also maybe a case to be made for another inverted head and shoulders. So as a trade setup, that exists. This could also be interpreted as probably an ascending triangle. But again, we're not back to the neckline quite yet. We need things to start to look a little better. And that's, of course, going to be most evident on BTC. If BTC can curl up anywhere near 62 again, then you'd expect alts to also start to look a little bit better. It's not going to take much down here just because we've been sideways for so long, and 62 doesn't even guarantee much of anything, right? It's just the alt trades, the alt setups, I think, start to look a little bit better, the few that are out there. So I would definitely pay close attention to BTC here. Monero on the weekly, lots of sideways chop, not too much going on. There's again this case to be made. Anytime you have a series of lows, sure, right? We had talked about this possibility, I think, into October last year. Unlike the rest of the market, which exploded in Q4 2023, Monero pulled back, right? It did nothing. I think this is when Binance delisted it or announced it was going to delist it. But this is another one that may start to pull up if Bitcoin can curl up into the 60s. LTC, still in this holding pattern at support. Do I want to long a 7-year support diagonal? I do not, but I can understand people who would. I would much rather just wait to see what happens in Q4. Let this sell off. I don't want to get stopped out. Just wait. You can just wait to see, do we have alt season in Q4 or not? And where could LTC go? For just a super generous interpretation would be somewhere 250 to 325, right? Somewhere up there, which is obviously a great trade as a percentage from here, but that path isn't quite determined just yet, right? We're still hanging out at lows. We're at the do or die support. And as many in the comments will let you know, I think it needs more time. Just think it needs more time. Tau just listed, doesn't look like much of anything to me. Sideways chop. Link on the daily here, below the cloud, unexciting. That's it. This is the power of the cloud. You can just go through this whole list in about 5 seconds and you're good to go. Matic below the cloud, dot below the cloud, uni announcement today. Couldn't really see that on the chart below the cloud. Maybe Adam and Eve, but certainly not bullish. Hasn't been bullish for quite some time. INJ just continued downward chop, and it's just more of the same, more of the same, more of the same. Pepe. When charts look like this, much like MSTR, Sol, just because they've been ranging for 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, doesn't mean they'll just keep ranging back to the range high. This has an expectation of, okay, one day this could be down 25, 30%. This is not a bullish position for price relative to the cloud, just like it's not a bullish position for price on BTC relative to the cloud. And that's why you wait for prices back above the cloud. FTM, just like FET, has this similar potential trade to watch for into the rest of the month. Not super exciting, not flashy, but the important part is getting back to the previous high at 51 cents. That's the first step for sure. Sui had a bit of a pop. Everybody got super excited, and altcoins doing altcoin things, selling back, selling off. Welcome to unlocks, issuance, inflation when no one else is really home. A lot of this stuff is generally thinly traded, so a few $1 million can push it up, but it's very hard to maintain that over an extended period of time. Near just kind of all over the place, back at the range low, doesn't look bullish. I don't even think there's anything I can draw there that would make sense. Just all over the place. BCH, sure, why not? Looks like junk. Moving on. Render. Also nothing really constructive there. On low time frames, Tron. Interesting that Tron is all the way down there on the volume list. Really makes you question the prices. I know obviously Tron isn't traded heavily on Kraken or anything here. It looks okay. I can't get on board personally ever trading Tron. But yeah, it's up decently. I just don't think there's much of a trade there in the moment. Let's switch to BTC charts real quick, see if there's anything going on in the BTC pair land. Sol still consolidating at range lows, has a larger pattern potentially at play, but again, you want prices at higher highs, not lower lows. So that is a wait and see. ETH BTC continues to just look horrific. Any estimate that I had for sideways was blown out of the water, and it's looking like this chart from, I don't even know when, maybe even a year ago at this point, is probably going to come to fruition. Nothing happens good below the cloud. This is a great example of that. The harmonic here would measure to 036, which is basically the neckline of the inverted head and shoulders from 2018 to 2021. But just because we stabbed down there doesn't mean it wouldn't take continued consolidation. We still have sellers. We still have more sellers than buyers. Patterns like this suggest that buyers and sellers are coming to an equilibrium slowly but surely, and eventually you get more buyers than sellers. We are nowhere near that yet. So is this oversold? Sure, but it is not bullish. That's for sure. That's for certain. So that chart looks horrific. And even if we back this out to like the 3-day, it's obvious. It's been obvious, just like Total 2 has been obvious. There's just been no reason to hold ETH or BTC. LTC, BTC. This one's kind of interesting. A lot like Zcash. You know, every once in a while LTC has its moves. Most of the time they go nowhere. But we're kind of getting due for our semi-annual LTC fake out. And if we go to like the weekly, this does look decently oversold. There is a div here too, I think. Yeah, there's a bull div there. So the cloud doesn't love it yet. I would love to see another couple weeks of sideways here. But it's one to keep an eye on if you've got to trade something at all. Aave pulling up quite a bit there on the BTC pair. For the first time in 3 years, it is above a high time frame cloud. And even still, this may chop sideways relative to BTC. You may get a right shoulder here into 2025 or something. But at the very least, it is back above a high time frame cloud. Monero also downward chop. Not really much to speak of. It's maybe trying to do something. The daily looks okay. You know, it's got everything bullish. It's got cup and handle at the bottom. At the very least, it's got that. Better than most things right now against BTC. Ripple, BTC, looks like it's kind of stalled out there at the bottom. And generally very hard to trust anything that just kind of has done nothing historically. Where do you want to hop on this train? You know, do you want to trade this as a range? This is the range low. This is the range high. I guess it's farther along than LTC in its mean reversion attempt, but doesn't exactly look like a slam dunk there to me. Matic BTC. This isn't an all-time low for the pair, but on Kraken it certainly is. And this is just your brain on issuance and continuous unlocks. It's that simple. It's very hard to beat BTC over the long term for that reason. PAXG, this is gold. BTC looks okay on the daily. It's kind of at resistance here, but it's got this ascending triangle potential. Undeniable, right? So this does favor gold in the near term to me relative to BTC. ADA BTC will go to the weekly. Also, I mean, what are you going to do with this, right? The last time it was down here, it took 3 years to consolidate to break up, just like ETH BTC. You could say it's a falling wedge. You could say it's oversold. You could say it's at the bottom of the range. But man, why? Like, why are we fooling around with this stuff? It just doesn't really make any sense until you see any sort of sideways action first, consolidation like you did at the bottom in 2019. So as a trade, it doesn't really make much sense to me. Tron, just ranging. Not really much to say about that one. Doge, down, down, down. Sugar, we're going down swinging. This is at support, do or die. Historically, sub 100 sats is where Doge has lived, and sub 30 sats has been the buy zone. So if we for any reason see that, then I'll get more excited. But it is a long way to fall from here to 30 sats before it reaches that historic support level. DOT, much like Matic, this is just issuance. This is what altcoins do. They're not buy and hold vehicles against Bitcoin. Never have been, never will be. Bitcoin is the king. SNX, same thing. Lows there. Filecoin, continuous lows there. Not pretty for Filecoin. Not pretty for the files and the coins. Uni also even more bearish than I had thought. Just continuous lows here, even though it's quite volatile. ENJ, lows. I mean, all of these charts just look real bad. Atom. And there have been people undoubtedly at many points along most of these levels for most of these coins saying, okay, it's the bottom, right? And that's the argument for you're much better off just waiting to see any sort of strength, any sort of consolidation than trying to guess. This chart is just, it's hilarious how bad that looks. Link has held in there a little bit better, but I do believe, I guess that's not an all-time low for Link BTC, but it is on Kraken. And I think you get the point here. There's not really much going on across the board. Ocean just ranging. Let's go to Dash. Dash is the example of what to expect. Just endless selling. You're never going to beat BTC even in a bull market. And that's why Bitcoin maxis exist. That's why people ignore altcoins completely. And that's why people focus on the flavor of the week altcoin, because that is the only way you have a snowball's chance in hell at outperforming BTC. Some sort of hype machine, some sort of pump and dump crap that comes and goes, and then people move on to the next thing. And you get charts like this. Just endless selling. Now, I will admit, on this chart on the daily, like we're getting to a point where some of this stuff is just so oversold. As long as it's listed on an exchange, it has a chance. And this is what you want to see for anything, is months of sideways, years of sideways. A lot of these other altcoins are just fresh lows, right? But this is what you want to see to signify maybe, possibly, potentially something is happening here on price. I keep always going back to Zeek BTC, but they delisted that on Kraken against BTC. So the message has been clear for a long time. Dominance still very strong. Alts still very weak relative to BTC. And there's not much else to say. The farther down we go here, the more purchasing power you have if you've held BTC instead of alts. And if this is your first cycle, well, you're learning that lesson in real time. That's all for this one. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe. And happy trading.